Hola, bienvenidos a Lightspeed Spanish. Well, I have been knocking around with a Spanish woman, my wife, for the last 22 years. And in many ways, Spanish people and English people are very similar. And in many ways, they are completely different. And I'm going to tell you about the way that they are completely different. We couldn't be any more different. And it's about waiting rooms. Hablamos de todo en la segunda parte.
Ojalá tuviera yo un español más decente.
Here in Spain, if you go into a waiting room, there is a protocol that you follow. Especially if you're going in, for example, into the doctor's waiting room, there's a protocol that you follow here in Spain, which you must never do in the UK. It will cause you a problem. How do I know that? Because my wife has tried to use this Spanish protocol in waiting rooms in the UK, much to her disappointment. So let me explain how a British waiting room works. So you go into the waiting room, you walk in, the people seated around, you find a seat, you sit down and you pick up a magazine or you get your phone out and you don't do anything else. The secret to a waiting room in the UK is that you keep yourself to yourself. And another very important rule, you must be very quiet. You even have to swallow quietly. We don't like a lot of noise. We don't like anybody making a scene. You don't have your kids running around. Everybody is very quiet and quite nervous because they're going to see the doctor or the dentist or whatever. That's the UK system. The Spanish system, which I prefer, I have to say, is this. You walk into the waiting room, all the people are sitting round, and you say, Hola, buenos días, or buenas tardes. You greet them, and they all greet you. There's even eye contact, which is something that we don't do in the UK. You wouldn't be looking at people in the eyes in a waiting room. You look to the floor and you sit down. In Spain, people greet you, you greet people and you sit down. And then something happens, like in the doctor's surgery, something happens that just wouldn't happen in the UK. What is it? Well, it's this. The person walks in, they sit down, they greet everybody, they sit down and they ask this question. ¿Por qué ahora van? ¿Por qué ahora van? What does that mean? What does that question mean? Well, what's interesting, as I thought about doing this video, I was thinking, how might we say that in the UK? And I couldn't think of a way. Do you know what I noticed was that as I was imagining myself going into a waiting room in the UK and asking this question, I was feeling stressed because you just don't do it. The question means this. Who is it that's due to go and see the doctor? What time was your appointment compared to the time now? So, for example, you say, oh, my appointment was at 3, but now it's 3:30, so they're half an hour late. So this is how you work out, are they running on time or are they running late? And that's the way how we would have to describe it in English, because we don't have that system. People don't understand, so you'd have to explain it. I want to know who is about to go and see the doctor because I don't know the order, and are you on time or not? But in Spain, all they do is they just say, ¿Por qué hora van? But let me tell you something. To do that in the UK, well, I've just never, ever seen it. It might have changed. I could be wrong, but I've never seen that. Nobody speaks in waiting rooms in the UK. Nobody speaks in general. It's a difference between Spain and the UK. When we get together, we tend not to be talking too much. We're not great chatters. And so what happened was my wife went to the dentist's with my 2 children. She took my children to the dentist. I couldn't that day. And she walked in, not knowing that the UK has a different system. She walked in and she opened the door and she said, Good morning. And when she came home, she said to me, I said good morning to everybody and nobody answered me. Nobody looked at me. And I said, that's right, because we don't do that in the UK. You don't go willy-nilly greeting people that you don't know. And she learned a valuable lesson there. of not doing that. And on the contrary, my wife has told me sometimes, you should be greeting people. You know, when you walk into a shop, even in Mercadona, massive superstore, you go in and the person on the front desk, the first cashier, will greet you if you greet them. They greet you. People greet the cashier, which just wouldn't be done. You wouldn't do it in the UK. Why would you do it? Why would you be greeting people? Here in Spain, it's what you do. You walk into a bar, you greet people. You walk into a shop, you greet people. It's very nice. I like it. But you don't do it in the UK. And that is where we are very, very different. I will be continuing these videos about the differences culturally between the UK and Spain. And the ones I like and the ones I don't like that much. Pues hablamos de todo más tarde, chicos. Hasta luego.
Ojalá